This is War Room Moments, the show that takes you around the world to share interviews with some of the most successful and most relevant people on the planet, hear their stories, and get the most important business lessons they have learned on their road to success, and get exclusive advice on how to implement their success into your life and business. War Room Moments is brought to you by the Strategic Advisor Board. Here's your host, Jason Miller.
Hey, are you looking to scale your business from 5 figures to 6 figures or 6 figures to 7 figures? If you are, I have the perfect thing for you. What I want you to do today is I want you to go download a book. This book is going to take you through my 3-pillar system. It's 100% free. All you have to do is go to growfast.cash. I say again, go to growfast.cash, and you're going to be able to download my free international best-selling book, which is called Be Good, Be Brief, Be Gone. You can take that book. It's going to help you scale your business to the next level. Again, go download it. Be good, be brief, be gone. Growfast.cash. I say again, growfast.cash. Enjoy. Welcome everybody to today's what I would say amazing opportunity to get some great advice instilled in the things that you're doing by a man that I highly respect, served, I wouldn't say beside, but served during the same time frame. And somebody that I highly respect, and that's General Retired David Petraeus, who's here with us today. Thank you, sir, for taking the time out of your busy schedule today to be here. And I hope we can support you with your new book launch, and as a community, help you with that as well. For those of you that don't know General Petraeus, I'd find it hard to believe that you wouldn't. He obviously is a retired 4-star general, also served as the director of the CIA, and also is with KKR, and accolades I could go on forever and ever and ever. So right up front, some housekeeping rules for everyone. If you could mute your mics. And also, if you have questions, put the questions in the chat, and I will present them as we go along. Okay. Please don't just outburst questions. Put your questions, if you have them, in the chat. Sir, thank you for being here. The floor is yours. We're very excited to have you.
Well, it's great to be with you, Jason. Thanks. I'm glad we finally were able to pull this together after having a misfire previously when something from my main employer trumped what it was that we were hoping to do together. Right. I guess what I would do is just lay out up front an intellectual construct for the exercise of strategic leadership, which is the leadership at the very top of an enterprise. And I know that a lot of the people who are viewing this are small and medium business owners and leaders, and it's very applicable to all of you. And I think you all recognize probably the tasks that you are implicitly performing already, even if you don't explicitly have this kind of intellectual construct distilled for yourself. I'll note as well that leaders at any level perform the 4 tasks that I'm going to describe. The difference is that the leader at the very top has the blank slate when it comes to determining what the overall strategy, the big ideas are. And that is absolutely crucial. So I developed this particular intellectual construct between my 3- and 4-star tours in Iraq. I used it explicitly during the conduct of the surge in Iraq, U.S. Central Command, and then command of our forces, coalition forces in Afghanistan. Also as a director of the CIA, and then frankly, during 11 and a half years at KKR, I've used it as well, not only to evaluate how we are doing at KKR, and I've been a partner since the second year, but also to examine the quality of the leadership of companies that we're looking at with an intent to buy them or take a minority stake in them. And I should give perspective, I guess. KKR is one of the largest investment firms in the world. We've grown from $83 billion under management when I joined KKR 11 and a half years ago to over $624 billion now and growing. We own about 120 companies around the world. They often own large numbers of companies themselves. Axel Springer, for example, big media conglomerate in Europe and now also North America, owns about 120 companies itself. And then we have minority interest in another 120 or so companies. We also own our own insurance company, about 180 billion under management, do credit, capital markets, all. So it's not just the traditional private equity, it's also real estate, energy, infrastructure, and a variety of others. With that, the model that, again, I distilled during the 15 months that I was back in the United States between the 3- and 4-star tours in Iraq has 4 tasks. The first and far and away most important is to get the big ideas right, to craft the right strategy. This is absolutely crucial. If you do not perform this task well, all of the other attributes and qualities of leadership and performance of the other 3 tasks doesn't matter because it's not going to succeed. And in fact, in the book, Conflict, the Evolution of Warfare from 1945 to Gaza, the second edition of which just came out in mid-October, we lay out this intellectual construct in the introduction and use it as the prism through which we examine each of the wars, each of the conflicts that we discuss in the course of that particular book. And perhaps not surprisingly, it's the quality of the strategic leadership on either side that typically determines the victor and the vanquished. To craft the right big ideas for conflict, you have to understand the nature of the war in which you are engaging. You have to understand your forces, the enemy forces, the human terrain, the physical terrain, all the elements of society, how a country is supposed to operate, how it really operates, the neighborhood, every facet of the context in which you're carrying out this particular endeavor. The second task is to communicate the big ideas throughout the breadth and depth of the organization and to all who have a stake in the outcome of the conflict. For the surge in Iraq or Afghanistan, this included not just our Iraqi and Afghan counterparts, all the coalition forces, our Afghan forces, the White House, number 10 Downing Street, other coalition capitals. It included America's mothers and fathers, the American population. In particular, given that we were always the largest contributor by far in those different wars. The third task is where you have to oversee the implementation of the big ideas. You're obviously not implementing them yourself, you're overseeing those who are doing that. You're driving the execution of the campaign plan. This is what we normally think of as leadership. It's the energy the leader provides, the example, the inspiration. It's attracting the best and brightest you can possibly get and hanging on to them as long as you can, allowing those not measuring up to move on to something else. The organizational architecture that you develop for the conduct of the war, or the endeavor, the business, whatever it may be. It is the metrics that you use to determine whether you're achieving progress or experiencing setbacks. And they have to be keyed, obviously, to the big ideas, to the strategy that you're implementing. And then it's how you spend your time, which is a particularly important element. We spend a lot of time determining how I should best and most productively and efficiently and effectively use my time. We had a huge butcher block piece of paper that laid out my battle rhythm, as we termed it, what we did on a daily basis, multiple times a week, every other week, monthly, quarterly, where we had a 6-hour exhaustive campaign plan review and assessment with all of the other major senior generals, all the ambassadors. People would come from the Pentagon and U.S. Central Command headquarters in London and so forth. And then on that battle rhythm, there are events and meetings and activities that enable you or even force you to perform the fourth task, which is to determine how you need to refine the big ideas as the context evolves so that you can repeat the process, communicate the new big ideas, oversee their implementation, and determine how you need to refine them and do it again and again and again. In the case of the surge in Iraq, the most important big ideas were 180 degrees different from what we had been doing prior to the surge. Throughout 2006, the Sunni-Shia civil war had escalated to terrifying levels. We were conducting clear and leave operations. In other words, we would go into a neighborhood, kill a bunch of bad guys or detain them, and then leave or hand off to Iraqi forces that were no longer combat effective because the escalation of the violence had rendered them so. In essence, that meant that the bad guys came back and they reconstituted, and the violence would go up even higher. And as we began to conduct the surge, my determination was that we had to clear and hold and build, not clear and leave. That was the only way we could achieve the most important mission of all, which was to secure the people. Without security, nothing else is possible. With it, you can solidify the foundation of security by all the other activities that you undertake, whether it's providing humanitarian assistance, restoring basic services, rebuilding schools, bridges, houses, markets, clinics, all the damaged infrastructure. None of that is possible, however, without security. And we identified how we could secure the people, and that we had to do it. We had to take back control from the Iraqi security forces, which could no longer achieve that mission. And then once we had security, produce a better future for the Iraqi people in the most violent areas, so that they would have a stake in the success of what it was we were doing, and ultimately a stake in the success of their country, rather than a stake in its failure. So we did clear and hold and build. I had a series of admonitions that laid out, that communicated my counterinsurgency guidance for all of our forces. Every single soldier, sailor, airman, Marine, contractor got a copy of this digitally. Secure and serve the people. We can only do that by living with the people. We're going back downtown. Promote reconciliation. We cannot kill or capture our way out of industrial strength insurgency. We have to reconcile with as many as we can, ultimately 103,000, Sunni and Shia. Pursue the irreconcilables, the leaders of Al-Qaeda, the Sunni insurgents, the Shia militia supported by Iran, even more relentlessly, 12 to 15 targeted operations by our most special operations forces every single night. Promote greater civil and military integration, and so on down the list. And there were ones about walk, take off your sunglasses, promote initiative, in the absence of orders, figure out what they should have been and execute aggressively, because you're trying to create a culture that prizes initiative, be a learning organization, and so forth and so on. So that's how that was operationalized, this particular model in that particular war. I can do the same thing for you with Netflix. Reed Hastings, one of the great strategic leaders of our time, right up there in my view with Jeff Bezos and Jack Ma of Alibaba. First big idea for Netflix, and I sat down with Reed and discussed this with him. First big idea is we're going to put movies in the hands of customers without brick and mortar. We're going to undersell Blockbuster. Blockbuster ultimately, as we all know, goes out of business, except for one that's left in Bend, Oregon, which refuses to let its Blockbuster die, a famously contrarian place. And that's great because we can take grandkids out there now, if you're of my generation, and show them what we used to do on a Friday night. Second big idea, we can actually have customers download movies. Reed Hastings recognizes that broadband speeds are much faster. And so he understands the implications of that, crafts a new big idea to have people download. Third big idea, this is the breakout moment for Netflix. We're going to make our own content. $100 million in House of Cards alone, all the other iconic series that we know and love and binged watched during the early months of the pandemic. And then the fourth big idea is we're going to make major motion pictures. And he goes out and buys not one, but two major movie studios, and does that so successfully that they actually got more Academy Award nominations 3 or 4 years ago than any other major movie studio. I did have issue with him. I explained this to him, that the movie in which Brad Pitt plays General Stan McChrystal just doesn't work. Brad Pitt marches around like a little wooden soldier. He salutes awkwardly all the time. He has no sense of humor. He clearly just doesn't get the again, the character of General McChrystal, with whom I spent at least 5 years in combat over time. And besides that, as I noted to Reed Hastings as well, I couldn't believe that Brad Pitt didn't hold out to play me. With that, Jason, back to you, and see if there's any questions from the floor here. You can ask anything you want, except domestic politics, which I don't do. And I'll leave that to the pundits on Fox and MSNBC.
Sure. Well, here's what I really love about this conversation that we just had was, the processes that lead to success, can be applied from the military processes over to
Absolutely.
business all day. I mean, I've spent the last, decade refining those processes to implement into business. And those four things that you talked about are all key successful pieces to for those of you that are on here for implementation. Somehow spin it your own way, do your own thing with it, right? But those four processes are the same to running a massive military operation and or running a 2-employee business, right? They apply no matter what. And that's why I really enjoy the book itself, because it really dives a lot deeper into that. And I really highly recommend all of you go get the book. We'll include links and all that stuff as we go along. Okay, so there's one question. Looking to grow your business beyond 5 figures, 6 figures, 7 figures plus? What I want you to do is go download this book. The title is called Be Good, Be Brief, Be Gone. It will help you grow your business past 5, 6, and 7 figure. Go download the book today. Growfast.cash. I say again, growfast.cash, and download the book for absolutely free. His question was, culture change takes time and can be hard. When considering psychological safety, how can leaders ensure that issues are being elevated to the right levels without diluting the message by the time it gets to their level? That's actually a pretty good question.
It's a very good question. Now, first of all, of course, you have to determine what is the culture that you want to build, to strengthen in your organization. And that's part of your big ideas. For example, we explicitly sought to develop a culture of learning in the military organizations that I was privileged to oversee, to lead over the years, but especially during combat. Again, I had 5 combat commands as a general officer, and it is crucial that you are the side that is learning the fastest, because it's often that side that will prevail. And so you not only explain that this is what you want to inculcate, this is what you want to foster the development of, but it's also something that you then actually, in a way, force or facilitate by how you carry out, again, what it is you're doing. So as an example, on my battle rhythm, every month we got all the 2-star general commanders and above together. And in the course of each of these division commanders, as they're called, giving their updates about what was going on in their area of responsibility, they were also required to share 2 lessons that they learned or initiatives they were pursuing that would be relevant to the other commanders in that particular conference. And again, this was not optional. This was something that was required. We had lessons learned teams all over the battlefield. I got as many of those out in Iraq and Afghanistan as I could. The Army Center for Lessons Learned, the Marine Corps Center, the Joint Forces Center, Special Operations Center, Asymmetric Warfare Group, Counterinsurgency Center, all had lessons learned team members. Now, the truth is, by the way, they weren't learning lessons. These were misnamed organizations. They should have been described as lessons identified organizations, because what they could do is identify a lesson that should be learned, bring it to me. I then determine how do we incorporate that in the big ideas during the fourth task. And in fact, on the battle rhythm, once a month, we would gather all of the full colonels that were in charge of the different lessons learned teams to meet with me. It was a process that culminated with them meeting with me and then sharing lessons that they believed needed to be embraced more widely. We also sought, once a month, I did a video conference with the individual who replaced me in the 3-star job back in the United States at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, which had 6 different hats, in other words, 6 different titles, and was viewed as the really the agent of change for our Army. It had a very important intellectual critical mass and all kinds of responsibilities that enabled it, and to determine what needed to be incorporated in our doctrinal manuals, in our organizational architecture, in our leader development courses. And that particular 3-star oversaw all in education, professional military education for our commissioned, non-commissioned, and warrant officer leaders. In the training center scenarios in the Mojave Desert, for example, in our material requirements, personnel policies, and then facilities. This is an acronym that just helps you remember the different ways in which you institutionalize, in other words, learn lessons. And again, it goes on and on. I would go out on the battlefield 3 days a week, right after the morning update and subsequent meetings were done, which all started at 7:30 in the morning. I'd get in an armored vehicle or in a helicopter or a plane to go downtown Baghdad, a little further out, or all the way north or south, and then join up with a small unit, go on patrol, experience a bit of what it is that they're doing outside the wire, doing what only they can do, which is to engage the enemy and engage the population. And then go back and I'd sit with just the company commanders. These were captains, so they're on their 2nd or 3rd combat tour typically. They're mature, they're not the impressionable 2nd lieutenant platoon leaders. And they then, it was not optional again, they had to give a sustain. In other words, what is it that I should want to ensure it continues to be done and improve? What do we need to do better? And they couldn't say me too. You had to go around the table. It'd usually be about 6 of them in a tent or whatever, and would eat lunch together. And then I would give them my email address, secure internet address. And I said, if you are frustrated with your chain of command that is not recognizing the importance of a problem that you're raising to them and trying to solve it, you send it to me, and we'll try to protect your identity. But I need to know about it if those at your level, which is the last level at which every soldier, every casualty is a face, not a number, then again, I need to be aware of that. So again, there are just many, many, many of what we call tactics, techniques, and procedures to go about building, strengthening, inculcating the culture that we sought in that unit. There were a variety of other elements of that culture, discipline, obviously, when it came to dealing with the civilians and also with the enemy and frankly with each other and a number of others. And we spent time, again, determining what the culture should be and then how we would actually foster the development of it. And then also, as I noted, employed a variety of techniques so that I could hear from the bottom and see at the bottom what really was going on for myself. And that's how you go about that. By the way, this is a great question here I saw in the chat earlier. Actually, here's a great one. As the American general with the far most awesome name, did any other brass give you guff? Yeah, all the time. I mean, my own boss didn't believe in the conduct of the surge. He tried to have us draw down while we were still 2 weeks into the buildup. That occasioned a very harsh phone call from me to him. I thought I was in my final job in uniform anyway, so I was not a great subordinate all the time. We didn't go there to lose gracefully. And then, frankly, the Joint Chiefs tried to box me in as well. And I, at the end of the sessions in which I evaluated the 3 courses of action that they sent to me to evaluate for presuming that I would adopt one of those to recommend to the president at the 6-month mark of the surge, I said, Chiefs, I thank you very much. This has been a very, very useful exercise for the staff and for me. But I should tell you that the option that I recommend to the president tomorrow will not be any one of these three options. So, yeah, no, I mean, look, where you stand on different things depends on where you sit. And if you're in a service, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines at that time, and you have a commander out on the battlefield who's asking for every single thing you have, and you're worried about the health of your service, you might take a different view of things. On my view, though, as was President Bush's view, that what would break the service was not being heavily used on the battlefield, it would be losing a war. And we tried to make sure that we didn't do that. I saw a question from Travis Hearn, which is a very familiar name to me. Good to see you. Let me see where it is. Actually, here it is. What are the key leadership procedures or big ideas that I've taken from my time in the military and intelligence community still serving today? Well, first of all, again, it is this model for leadership. Again, these 4 tasks, period. Again, at any level of leadership, but especially for strategic leadership. For what it's worth, I'm also personally invested in about 30 startups, many rounds in many cases with these individual companies. And what I'm evaluating is this quality of the strategic leadership and the big ideas that strategic leader has developed, in particular, to try to get a sense of whether the founder or founders will be able to implement the big ideas they've developed and be able to scale the company without having to be replaced, frankly, because in many cases you have someone who's brilliant in terms of technology, but doesn't have the basic leadership skills or managerial capabilities to scale that company. And you need to know that because that's rocky. Leadership transitions in the process of scaling can be very, very challenging. So I think now there's also a whole series of tactics, techniques, and procedures. For what it's worth, for those that want to dig into this more deeply, I've often had a number of academic endeavors over the years. I did a Ph.D. at Princeton in a combination of economics and international relations. And so I've had, I think it's 5 or 6 different academic appointments. Currently, I'm the Kissinger Fellow at Yale, but I was for 6 years a non-resident senior fellow at Harvard. And while I was there, a group of graduate students, all of whom had worked for me in the war zones, wanted to distill this strategic leadership intellectual construct and create a website for it. And it exists. So if you go to the belfercenter.org, Belfer Center is one of the great centers within the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard, and then search for Petraeus on strategic leadership, this website will pop up, and it's full of additional ideas, Travis, on again the tactics, techniques, and procedures of how you implement this. There's concepts, for example, of preemptive praise, which I used to use with the Prime Minister of Iraq all the time. I'd know I would get word that he didn't want to do something or was going to do the opposite of what it was that I felt he should do. So I'd go into the week. We had a weekly meeting with him. The ambassador and I had 1 hour with him, and then the ambassador and I also attended his National Security Council meeting every week as well. But I would go in and I'd say, Prime Minister, so good to see you. And I have to tell you up front, no need for you to say anything yet. I have to tell you how pleased I am that you're going to pursue this new initiative, which is what I wanted him to do, which I knew he didn't want to do and wasn't going to do. And again, no need to comment, Prime Minister. It's just so great. In fact, I've already been sharing. I told President Bush, this is what you're going to do. He's very excited about it. My senior leadership, you basically box him in and you just keep going. I mean, I'd speak for 10 minutes about all the great things this is going to do and everything else. And he just sort of resigns, said, okay, I guess I got to do it. There's the concept of affirmative leadership, which is not affirmative action. It's just positive leadership, where I say, hey, Travis, I can't wait to see that document that you're producing for me by Monday at noon. I don't know if I'll be able to sleep on Sunday night. The troops are talking. They're telling me that you're onto some really big stuff. And again, I'm really looking forward to getting that. Isn't that so much better than saying, hey, Travis, you better have that darn thing on my desk Monday at noon or I'll have a piece of your backside. There's a whole bunch of these kinds of, again, what we term TTP, tactics, techniques, and procedure, that we talk about in that particular that website. And it's worth, I don't know if you can pull it up, Jason. Again, go to Belfer Center, BELFER Center.org, and search for Petraeus and strategic leadership.
Yeah, we'll put it out as one of the links, or for sure.
How do
I know
cohesion within a team under high pressure situations? I mean, you got to build it. You have to create trust. You have to treat people fairly and as you'd like to be treated, needless to say. You can't lose your temper. You can't let your shoulders shrug. You can't be unrealistically optimistic in bad times. You have to be compassionate and understanding. I mean, all the basic, this is really almost more interpersonal skills, but you have to provide an example that shows a degree of just sheer determination and indomitable will, like that which General Grant provided during the Civil War, the man who truly saved the Union because it was his strategy for the first time that actually galvanized all of the forces of the Union and created the successes that led to the most important event of the Civil War, which was the re-election of Abraham Lincoln, which was by no means a sure thing. He was being challenged, in fact, ironically, by General McClellan, who had twice had Grant's job and failed each time. He was very, very hesitant. He was a great trainer, and the troops loved him, but he never could actually galvanize into action. Whereas Grant would just go into action and have this iron will, as exhibited at the Battle of Shiloh the first day, where the Confederates nearly drove him back into the Tennessee River. Sherman, his most trusted lieutenant, and he, they're feverishly all night long trying to get additional forces down the Tennessee River to land. And Grant is standing under a tree. There's a light drizzle. All the available shelter is being used for makeshift hospitals. He can hear the cry of soldiers whose limbs are being amputated without any kind of medicine and so forth. There's those still on the battlefield crying out. And Sherman comes out of the dark and he says, well, Grant, we had the devil's own day today, didn't we? And Grant takes a stub of a cigar out of his mouth and says, yep, lick 'em tomorrow, though. And you have to have that kind of example. Again, it has to be realistic. It should just be determined. But that is a really important element of that. But back to you, Jason.
Yeah, I was just one question I think that's important, and to honor your time here too. We'll kind of close this up after this question, but I know a lot of our small business owners struggle with funding, right? And I know through KKR you have some really unique experience with that. What would be a few pieces of advice you could give to some of these smaller companies to engage in funding for growth?
Demonstrate the ability to grow.
Sure.
We go out and say, look, we're the best strategic partner anybody can have. In all honesty, we don't do small deals if you're managing 624 billion. So the very smallest we will do is in the software space with a company that has at least 25 million in ARR, annual recurring revenue, and is scaling. For example, one of the ones on whose board I sit had 34 million under annual recurring revenue. When we bought them about 5 years ago, they just broke through 500 million. We took them public on the stock market. Stock has already gone from 20 to 31 or 32. So we're looking, you have to show that the market values what it is that you are producing and that you can generate more revenue if you have the funding to enable, and not just the funding. When we buy a company, that's our company then, and we'll put our chairman of the board in, typically keep a CEO and senior leadership, but there's going to be real assistance provided. By the way, it often includes employee ownership. We're very, very big on this. And there's nothing that incentivizes workers like owning part of the company in which they're working. And these are pretty dramatic ceremonies when we have them. It's typically around the initial public offering time. and they're given shares of stock. And it's pretty dramatic. I mean, when you give a worker, in one case, there was an overhead door. These are industrial companies. There was, I think, a woman who had been with overhead door for 30 years and opened the envelope and found $1 million worth of stock. So everybody got something. Even those who had been there only a year would get a modest amount, and then the longer the individuals had been with the firm, the more they got. But it's amazing what that does for productivity, for identification of efficiencies, of waste, and so forth. And so we're very, very high on that. But again, it's just about showing the potential for growth with a great strategic partner. And again, we're likely not the kind of company, depending on the size. We love family businesses, but we love family businesses that are producing hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue, and we can invest 500 to $1 billion or more dollars, and then help it grow even more. But it's the same as what I look for in startups, and I am really excited by that. I mean, I'll close just by saying that I've developed enormous respect for those who build and run a business. That's what has actually made America great again and again and again. We have a fairly unique ecosystem in the United States, a set of incentives, laws, policies, programs, and so forth that inculcates that really rewards those who have the courage to do what it is that I'm sure a lot of the viewers here are actually doing. But with that, I thank you, Jason. It's been great to be with you. Great to see you all. And I hope that some of you will navigate your way to the belfercenter.org and read about the strategic leadership model there.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, sir, for taking the time to be with us, and be blessed. Thank
Likewise.
you. Bye-bye.
Hey, we all want to scale our business. Hey, I have the answer for you today to help you do that. If you're looking to scale from 5, 6, even 7 figures and beyond, book called Be Good, Be Brief, Be Gone. I'm going to give it to you for free. All you have to do is type in growfast.cash. I say again, growfast.cash, and you can download the book for absolutely free. I hope the book helps you this year. Take your business to the next level. Again, go grab the book, growfast.cash. I say again, growfast.cash. I wish you the best, and grow, scale, and win.
Thanks for listening to War Room Moments with your host, Jason Miller. Please leave your feedback and visit strategicadvisorboard.com to get the latest and greatest business advisement on the planet. Follow us on social media for updates, and we'll see you on the next episode.
There it is. Magnum. Holy moly.
Yeah, baby! That's what I've been waiting for!
Dear God.